Sometimes we don't see reality. Sometimes we see what we expect to see. So I saw this video where a man was saying that it's really funny that some men get upset that some women like 6 foot tall men with six figures and six pack abs. And he said it's really funny because the this preference is rooted in patriarchy. Patriarchy puts people and men on a hierarchy, on a ladder, on a pyramid. And at the top is that 1% that is very difficult to reach. And below that is everybody else until we get down to the 99% that are really close to the bottom, right? And so this is a form of a result of patriarchy being dominant. 6 foot people seem to be dominant. Six pack abs show physical strength, discipline, training. And six figures show that you have, again, reached the top. Only about 21% of men make six figures and above in America. So this is literally what patriarchy espouses. But women aren't supposed to want this, right? Because women are supposed to just want any man that approaches her, because women are seen in patriarchy as at the bottom of the pyramid and not having much choice, not having much power. So the men who love patriarchy, when they think about it giving them power over women, hate patriarchy when it somehow leaves them out, when it somehow oppresses them. But this is not the only time we see this mentality. There are men who love the corn industry. They love strip clubs. They love rap songs that objectify women, but let women benefit from those industries, like the OnlyFans segment, like Meg the Stallion or other rappers that benefit from suggestive lyrics and suggestive clothing and things like that. And men are all up in arms. But you created this system. Men set up schools and excluded women from them for over 100 years. And then in the last 3 decades or so, women are beginning to surpass men in educational attainment. And now all of a sudden, these schools that were created for men, by men, and excluded women are suddenly now, well, they're set up for women, and that's why boys are not succeeding. And again, think about the hypocrisy, because nobody was really caring when women were excluded. They thought that was the natural order. Nobody was caring when, women weren't called on in class and when they were overlooked, and the guidance counselors told them they were just there to, get a husband or to develop some homemaking skills and be able to help their kids learn, but they didn't really need to focus on STEM or math or science. Those were for the boys. Nobody was worrying about women then. But now that men are falling behind women, not men falling behind other men, not boys falling behind other boys, and not boys falling behind necessarily their own past progress, but just falling behind girls. It's a big deal. And then we want to think about the other areas of I guess you could say the society, the credit system, the legal system, the employment system, capitalism itself, the housing system. All of this was set up by men, for men, excluded women until my generation. I'm about to be 55. Most of the laws that allowed women access to loans, credit, getting housing without a husband's approval, buying a car without a husband's approval, getting a credit card without a husband's approval, getting grants, all these things, most of these things happened in my lifetime. Most of the laws that prevented women from access to these things were repealed in the 70s. So now that just in my lifetime, women have gotten access, full access to equal pay, to being protected from sexual harassment, all of these different changes in the last 40 to 50 years. And now women are beginning to move ahead. They're beginning to make more money than men. They're having more houses than men. They're beginning to have better credit than men. Now it's, Oh, there's government programs for women, and that's why they're moving ahead, and they're getting ahead because of child support. Now keep in mind, marriage has been down drastically over 60% over the last 30 to 40 years. All right, since the 70s. So I'll say up to 50 years. Um, but you want to give credit to child support? Well, childbirth rates are down drastically as well. So to have child support, you got to have a child. To have alimony, you have to be in about 10% of divorces. So again, now that women have gotten around all these obstacles and are beginning to show this progress in my generation, in this last few 20 or 30 years, now men are all up in arms. There's a male loneliness epidemic. There's a male mental health epidemic. All of this stuff is just an epidemic. It's a crisis. We got to do something. But nobody was worried about all of the stuff that women went through in the last 200 years that we've been here. But as soon as men fall behind, as soon as men aren't getting access to the women that they think they should get access to marriage, access to women who want to birth their children, access to the jobs that they feel entitled to, now it's a crisis. The funny thing about oppression is the oppressed tend to get stronger. They tend to get wiser. They tend to develop workarounds. They tend to become more resilient. And the oppressor tends to just become more corrupt and more entitled and lazy and complacent. And so it's almost like the tortoise and the hare story. In that story, that fable, the tortoise challenges the hare to a race because he's so sure he's going to win. Of course, the hare challenges the tortoise to a race because he's so sure he's going to win. And the hare is so sure he's going to win that he goes to sleep. Now, of course, men and women aren't tortoises and hares, but some men have acted like we are. They've acted like women are a different species, that men are the hare, men are the ones with the strength and the cunning and the logic and all of this stuff, and women have nothing over here but the ability to, give birth. And that's not the case. We are the same species. In this analogy, we're both hares. It's just the women hares, the female hares, had been put in a cage. But now that you've let them out of the cage, you can actually see how fast they can run. So putting someone in a cage doesn't take away their abilities. The abilities are still there. It's just they can't display them because they are in a cage. But once again, like I said, the cage is gone. And people are trying to put it back, but we're not going to let them. So may you walk in synergy. Sometimes we don't see reality.